Hello and welcome to my presentation. The title of my presentation today is Quilting Inclusion, Community Quilt in Collaboration with Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities. My name is Erin Coran and my faculty advisors for this project are Brittany Joseph and Michelle Weber. Like I said, my name is Erin, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a senior studying communication sciences and disorders. Just a note, for optimal accessibility throughout this presentation, I will read all text aloud, which allows access to this presentation for anyone regardless of literacy needs. And I will provide brief image descriptions for all pictures I show during my presentation. I have some very fun pictures that I'm excited to share with you, and I want everyone to be able to share in that joy. Lastly, I will provide a full written transcript for everything said during this presentation. If you have any other access needs that are not being met, please reach me by email that will be shown at the end of this presentation. Before I go into the specifics of what my quilt looks like in collaboration with Wood Lane, I would like to talk about my project inspirations and specifically the interdisciplinary perspectives that I brought to the table. So the research that I'm presenting today is preliminary research for my honors project, which I will be presenting at the end of the semester. Honors projects are interdisciplinary in order to expand our fields of study. The two fields of study that I'm looking at through this research are disability studies and the textile arts. Specifically within disability studies, I am looking at disability inclusion, and within textile arts, I'm interested in looking more into community art initiatives. Now I'd like to touch on some specific community organizations that have been huge inspirations for me as I've been learning about disability inclusion. The first one being Best Buddies BG, which is an organization at Bowling Green State University. So to start off, I'd like to talk about the images on this picture. On the top is an image of me and my buddy, Dennis Miller, and we are standing outside during a Habitat for Humanity build, and we're smiling and looking at the camera. The bottom image shows a group of college students and buddies, 3 best buddies, and we are sitting in the stands at a Bowling Green hockey game, smiling and looking at the camera, having fun. So Best Buddies works to foster inclusion through one-on-one friendships between people with and without intellectual and developmental disabilities. Research has shown that individuals with disabilities find social inclusion within communities of support that offer them a place to connect with others. And basically, Best Buddies BG is an amazing opportunity to offer that community of support. So through my involvement through Best Buddies BG, and as I've been looking towards my honors project, Best Buddies BG has inspired me to make my quilt with my buddy, Dennis, and other buddies I have met through the program. And you'll get to see some of them later in this presentation. The next disability inclusion organization I would like to touch on is Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities. So there are many opportunities offered through Wood County Board of DD. I'd like to touch on them through describing the images on the screen. On the left-hand side is shown women on the Special Olympics basketball team, and they are playing in a fun match against staff that work at Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities. On the top, there is a group of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and they are shown as members of People First, which is an advocacy group that works towards promoting self-advocacy among individuals with disabilities. They are shown in this image, some sitting in wheelchairs, some sitting in chairs, and some standing, smiling while they are at an advocacy event. In the bottom, there is a picture of 2 members of Wood County Board of DD, and they're shown outside engaging in what looks like an art activity during a greenhouse project. So the recreation program specifically provides avenues for socialization with an emphasis on forming lasting friendships. And research shows that it is important to advocate for the value of friendships between individuals with disabilities. And because of this research and because of everything that I have seen through my encounters with Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities, this inspired me to plan my quilt design in order to honor recreation activities and honor these opportunities that these individuals with disabilities have, like the ones I mentioned in the images. Now to touch on some community art inspirations. The first one is called Social Justice Sewing Academy. This organization is empowering youth to share their voice through textile art. And the way they do this is quilt blocks, which are essentially just parts of a quilt, are made by youth or other marginalized groups and are embroidered and finished by other community members. And through learning about this organization, this inspired me to make quilt blocks that were completely designed by the participants. So in the same way that Social Justice Sewing Academy works to allow the youth to share their voice and to share what they want to talk about and show through their art, I wanted to offer that same opportunity for my participants that worked with me on this quilt. So to talk about some of the images of this amazing organization, on the top left is an image of an example of a quilt that was made by a member that was involved with Social Justice Sewing Academy. So this quilt specifically shows someone celebrating with a diploma, and it says, "Education is freedom." On the right, there is an image of a man designing his quilt block. And at the bottom is an image of 3 participants embroidering quilt blocks that were made by other people. Pardon me, my lights went out during this presentation, but I hope you can still see me. There they go, back on. So the next community art inspiration that has been important to me is called the slow stitch movement. And this movement emphasizes connecting with textile work in an intentional and enriching way. So mindfulness and sustainability is encouraged throughout all aspects of the creative process. So basically, this movement is very countercultural. It looks at how we can slow down and to work intentionally rather than quickly, which is very different in a go, go, go world that we live in. And the images shown are just on top, there is an image of a bunch of individual stitches and patterns kind of all thrown together within an embroidery hoop. And on the bottom, similarly, there are different stitches bringing multiple pieces of fabric together. And through learning about this movement and just learning about the intentionality behind the slow stitch movement, this has inspired me to complete all aspects of my quilt by hand, which has been very fun aspect, but also very challenging. But at the end of the day, I am very grateful for the opportunity to enter into that extra step of intentionality with my project. So now that leads me to the quilt design. So because of all of these inspirations and elements that I was able to bring from my life, the final design that I came up with was to recreate the Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities logo with participant designed quilt triangles. So on the left shows the Wood County Board of DD logo, which says support, empower, inspire, and has a triangle which has a grid of 9 triangles within it. And on the right is actually an example of a mini quilt that I made last semester in preparation to propose this project. And to kind of explain more about what I did and then what I explained to the participants as we entered into this was each of these 9 triangles on the grid showcase a different element of Wood County Board of DD that really stuck out to me and is really important to me. I wish I had time to go into each and every one of these individually because it has been a very important part of my journey. But most importantly, I'm excited to share the participants later in this presentation. So now let's get to the participants. So I worked with 6 different individuals in the community. And like I mentioned, I had them design exactly what they wanted to put on their quilt block that would then go into the larger grid. To start off, and all of the format of these next parts of this presentation will be very similar. So I'd just like to go over in general what the layout of the slides will look like and to describe all of those images now. So on each slide, I have the name of the participant. I have written an artist statement, which is something that I worked with the adults with disabilities to talk about how they wanted to share in words what they drew. And then on the right-hand side of every slide shows the participant themselves holding up their specific design. So it is shown on a canvas, and then specifically there's a triangle shown and all of their artwork is within it. So first, let's talk about our first participant, Dennis. So through this project, this is the artist statement that Dennis wanted to share. Dennis shared his love for all things wood lane on his quilt triangle. Along with writing names of his club involvements in different colors, Dennis drew a swimming pool, bowling ball, volleyball, and portrait of him and his best buddy, which, if you remember, is me. So my favorite thing about working with Dennis was the pride he showed for his art. Throughout the event, he would continually ask me and the other leaders if he was doing a good job with his art. And he loved receiving that verbal praise when we told him, yes, Dennis, you're doing a great job. We love what you're working on. The next participant I'd like to touch on is Phyllis. And once again, just to reiterate, I will be reading through the artist statement, and then the image of Phyllis holding her design is on the right. So here is Phyllis's artist statement. Some of Phyllis's favorite activities at Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities are making crafts, watching movies, and spending time with friends. She illustrated this by drawing crafting supplies, popcorn, and a multitude of different colored stick figure friends. I was most impressed with Phyllis's dedication in her drawings. Although it's a little hard to see on this image, her popcorn drawing in the left-hand corner of her triangle has such fine detail, and she kept going on that drawing and all of hers, even if she got a little bit discouraged throughout the process. Our next participant is Kristen, and here is her artist statement. Kristen's colorful quilt triangle reflects the variety of activities she is involved in at Wood County Board of DD. Some of the things Kristen drew and wrote about are camping activities, bocce, volleyball, best buddies, and her role as a receptionist in the Wood Lane offices. I love how Kristen used such bright colors and filled up every inch of the space she had provided to her. She was not afraid to add written elements as well, which add a layer of dimension to her work. It's a little hard to see all of her written elements on this presentation, but as you continue to hopefully walk with me on this journey and to see my final quilt at the end of the semester, you will be able to see all of the amazing things that Kristen wrote in person. Our next participant is Ethan, and this is his artist statement. Out of all of the involvements offered by Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Ethan's favorites are the Special Olympic sports he plays throughout the year. His quilt triangle shows colorful and creative depictions of him playing baseball, bowling, and playing basketball. Ethan simply blew me away by his use of fun colors and creative added elements. He really valued the opportunity to try something new throughout this project, which was shown in his drawings. Specifically, he really enjoyed adding different color stars to the background and adding that extra pop of creativity within his project. Next up, we have Angela, pardon me, and this is her artist statement. Angela drew images to show appreciation for her favorite Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities activities, such as bowling, bingo, golf, watching movies, and going outside with Venture Club. She also wrote coaches because she likes spending time with the Special Olympics coaches during her sports activities. Personally, I really enjoyed Angela's use of repetition in her artwork. She drew, although it's a little hard to see, she drew multiple golf, bowling, and bocce balls throughout her presentation, which just added a really fun element to her simple and sleek design. Lastly, we have Melissa. This is her artist statement. Melissa's wide range of interests were clearly represented in her drawings. She drew colorful and energetic pictures to show her involvement in best buddies, swimming, gardening, volunteering, painting, camping, and attending meetings. What I loved about working with Melissa was her determination to share her precise message. She carefully chose each element that she wanted to include on her quilt, and she practiced each drawing multiple times before adding it to the fabric. Every single stroke of hers had such intention, which was so fun to watch and witness. Next, I would just like to touch a little bit about elements of the participant experience that were able to be fostered and just the benefits of that. So firstly, one of the things that the participants, along with me as the facilitator, was able to experience during this quilting event was lively conversations and laughter. And during the end of a pandemic, when we were all still wearing our masks and socially distanced, having this event in person, it was just so nice and refreshing to have lively conversations with one another that had previously just been over the screen. Secondly, there was a lot of encouragement among peers during this activity. So what this looked like is if one participant was maybe struggling or they didn't know where to go next with their design, um, others around them would encourage them and to just celebrate the things that they'd already drawn and celebrate that they already knew that the next thing they drew would be awesome. And I love to see that encouragement among them. Next, there was a very healthy atmosphere of collaboration on all aspects of the creative process. So, for example, um, a lot of the participants collaborated with each other on what they would draw next, or what colors they should use to highlight different things, or what they should draw to show their love for Venture Crew, which is one of the activities offered by Wood County Board of DD, or even simply for those that chose to include writing, how do you spell coaches? How do you spell bocce? How do you spell basketball? These were some of the collaboration opportunities we were able to exchange. And lastly, there was a lot of amazing opportunities for reflection and moments of gratitude. So a lot of the things shown on the individual's quilt triangles are events that unfortunately can't be happening in person right now because of the COVID pandemic. And because of this, the fact that we were still able to reflect on those activities that they were able to be involved in the past and to show gratitude for that was very incredible. And also we were able to look forward to the future whenever they would all be able to engage in these activities once again. And I would also just like to share a really special quote that one of the participants shared during the presentation, during our facilitation event. So I was actually across the room. I was not there in person or right next to him when I heard this. But one of the participants, he turned to one of the other leaders and he pulled her aside and said, "Make sure you're getting a picture of what I'm drawing. I think this is the best drawing I've ever done." And when I tell you, that warmed my heart, and it was so special and such a testament of his creativity and how proud he was of his work. So I chose in the top corner of this presentation slide, I showed just a zoomed in version of some of the details on that participant's artwork. Once again, not all of this artwork is shown in its final form right now. So as the quilting process continues, you will be able to see how the artwork continues to grow and to become a quilt. So with that, let's talk about the next steps of this process. So the first next step for me is to finish the embroidery. So I still have some embroidery left to do from the work that the participants gave me. This has been a very fun process, but also a long process. So I've been working really hard to implement different stitches and different skill sets throughout my embroidery. So I still have a little bit more to go. After that, I will hand stitch all of the triangles together into that nine triangle grid, if you recall from earlier in the presentation. After that, I will combine so that will become the top layer of the quilt, and I will combine quilt layers and hand quilt them together. So basically that's taking all the layers of the quilt and quilting it into a quilt. So sewing it together, which is called quilting, to turn it into a quilt. And lastly, once all of those steps are completed, I will be able to present the quilt at Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities and give it to them as a gift that they can present in their offices. So on this screen just shows some close-up highlights of different aspects of the embroidery that I've done so far. So if you look, there's 3 different images that just kind of show different captures and different highlights. All of them just showing different elements of, there's lots of different stitches used, different colors, different textures all shown throughout this rendition of what the participants gave to me during their drawings. So lastly, I'd like to touch on the lasting impact on diversity that I feel that this work will be able to implement. First, this quilt will be a staple witness to the dynamic and talented artists at Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I have absolutely loved being able to work so intimately with the art that's been created by these participants. And I cannot wait for all of you to be able to see this art firsthand, either in person or in well done photography, to see this art. Secondly, this quilt is able to highlight inclusion opportunities that are already offered, which can lead towards more community involvement in these opportunities. For example, a lot of the participants talked about their involvement in Best Buddies. They talked about their involvement in Special Olympics, which are all events that us in the community can get involved with as well in some capacity. So through the participants sharing their experiences, we as the viewers are able to see that and see how we could get involved to further that mission of inclusion. And lastly, something that's very exciting to me is that I believe that my work during this quilt will pave the way for hopefully many future community art-based partnerships between BGSU and Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities. It has been so fun for me to take my love for embroidery and the textile arts and to use that to honor the voices and the experiences of the participants from Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And I would love to see so many other students in the future using their artistic gifts to honor this community as well. So I hope that there will be many more community art-based partnerships to come in the future. So as I end my presentation, I just want to say thank you for your interest in this work, and I hope that you will continue to journey with me as I work on finishing my quilt at the end of this semester. For any updates or for further inquiries on the final quilt, you can reach me by email at ecoran@bgsu.edu. And on the right, I have my references. Thank you so much. Have a good day.